Alright, okay, so this one's a pretty interesting one. If you can't tell from most of the books I've been talking about so far this year, I've basically just been reading a bunch of random stuff on my Amazons that's been recommended to me. Uh, and, well, this one's no different, but that's where all the fun is in this kind of Russian roulette style book reading. Sometimes you get a really good, fun story, sometimes you get some boring dreck. Honestly, I'm kind of lucky because most of the books that I've been recommended have been pretty good so far, or at least interesting in their own way. And this one's no different. So, let's talk about it, shall we? In terms of our plot, our story follows Naberius. She's obviously a demon, and she's a demon of Getia. For those of you who don't know, Getia is a reference to the Bible and shit, and in this case, Getia is essentially demonic nobility. And as demonic nobility, bound by the laws of Solomon, she is summoned into the mortal world after a botched summoning attempt, and can't go home without her summoner, well, putting her back. Also, she also has to deal with the fact that she doesn't really have to do what her summoner tells her to do, and her summoner wants her to be his wife. Thankfully, she's quickly saved from her rather creepy summoner by a group of adventurers who, after watching them in action, she sets off her mind to become an adventurer, specifically to become a healer, despite the fact that as a demon she can't use healing magic. So from there is her trying to make a living as an adventurer, specifically a healer who can't use healing magic. So that's all pretty basic setup, but one thing I honestly kind of like is this world setting. It's a very clear fantasy world with fantasy races, people summoning demons and stuff like that, like demons and angels and stuff, and fantasy races like elves running around. And, well, we have monsters and adventurers, of course, but it's a much more modern world akin to our own world. There's cell phones, there's the way that adventurers are handled in this world, in which case they're all treated like gig work. Yeah, in this world, adventuring is more like Uber style, is more done through an Uber style app, where all the adventurers are all Uber drivers doing gig work. There are also Twitter equivalents and social media and whatnot, and all the other modernisms such as fast food joints. This is honestly the idea of adventurers being essentially a next gen gig worker, or a more exciting version of gig work, in and of itself is a pretty interesting concept and leaves the door open to, well, episodic storytelling through the various jobs, albeit a more convenient way thanks to the use of cell phones and apps. Honestly, considering how many isekai adventure stories I've read or am reading, just a simple change like this is a general refreshing change of pace. Oh yeah, like I said earlier, this setting and build up and world setting does lead to more episodic stories, and well, this book is an example of it. This book is split up into several smaller stories focused on each Zazab, Naberius, and later nicknamed Nebi, thank God for my ability to pronounce stuff, takes on in order to get by. It's one of her first jobs being a simple monster extermination, where she meets her future best friend, roommate, and partner slash troublemaker in Bosa, who's a tentacle songstress. She's a silica, so she has tentacles. Basically think mermaid, but lower half octopus, not fish. So kind of like Ursula, but in her case more attractive. And there's a big climax at the end of this book, unlike, the reincarnated warrior, that deals with Nebi's idea of being a healer and how far she's willing to go to stay as one. One thing I do like about the book outside the setting, because there has to be more to a book than setting for me to enjoy it, is Nebi. As a demon, as I mentioned earlier, she's obviously evil aligned, has evil aligned powers, and can't use healing magic, which is a good aligned power. Not that alignments exist in this world, at least I don't think they do. I might have missed a line. But, as a demon, she obviously can't use things that might be aligned with good. But she managed to come up with her own twist so that she can act as a healer, such as using a drain magic spell to siphon off enemy HP, as it were, and pushed into her outline instead of herself, as well as a revival skill that only steals a small part of your soul, with said portion eventually growing back, maybe according to Nebi herself. That is left inconclusive. Hopefully it actually does work. Nemi does, again, have great magical skill, which allows her to make up her own spells and modify them, and she generally doesn't like hurting people, which is why she wants to work as a healer. Bosa herself acts as a pretty great foil to Nebi, who, despite being a demon, has a very strong, innocent air, with Bosa being the wild party girl e-celebrity, who's probably a pretty negative influence, although she tries to be a positive one, especially later on. And, well, she's an e-celebrity until the end of her intro chapter, where she ends up cancelled and loses most of her celebrity status. But the pair working together from there on to afford rent. The most relatable of circumstances. Keeping the main motivation something very simple and, relatable as just being able to afford dinner that night works really well, and overall this is a pretty fun, light read. I'm honestly curious. There are 4 books, I believe, out right now, and I'm curious as to what Volume 2 has to offer. So, while it's an interesting take on the Isekai genre, it doesn't really blow the water out of the park. It doesn't really blow it out of the park, but it doesn't really need to. It finds its own fun niche, and I'm kind of happy with that. And, it makes me want to check out book 2, hopefully soon. Until next time, everybody.